there's a part of the Lady Koi Koi story that no one ever talks about. Her true origin. The moment that turned her into the monstrous being she is now, the monster who haunts the living with terrifying tales of fear. It all started with a woman named Juliet, now known as Lady Koi Koi. But before she became this chilling figure, she was simply Juliet. A young woman with dreams, aspirations, and a future full of hope. Juliet lived in a small African town, where the vibrancy of bright colors clashed with the starkness of poverty. Each day, she walked the dusty paths with purpose, her red heels clicking with determination. She dreamed of becoming a great teacher, one who could inspire and change the lives of her students. But how did this beautiful, hopeful woman turn into the monster that would haunt the land with fear? What twisted path did she follow to get there? Juliet worked hard at a public school, a place that seemed designed to frustrate her every step. Still, she poured her heart into her lessons, believing in the power of education, convinced it was the hope her students needed. Yet, each day, she faced a class of rebellious SS3 students, notorious for mocking her efforts. They didn't just challenge her, they ridiculed her. "Miss Juliet's nice shoes," one troublemaker shouted, and the rest burst into laughter. "Are you trying to be a model or a teacher? Save those for the runway," another sneered, smirking at her. Her heart sank, but she forced a smile. She clenched her feet, wishing she could escape the cruel mockery, and muttered under her breath, "I love my shoes. I don't care what you think. They're the only pair I own, and I plan to be buried in them." Her words only fueled their laughter. "Good luck finding a casket big enough for those clown shoes," one girl jeered, sending the classroom into another round of mocking laughter. Day after day, Juliet struggled. Each insult, each cruel remark, chipped away at her. Her dreams seemed to slip further and further out of reach. The laughter of her students haunted her as she returned home each evening, exhausted, staring at the ceiling and wondering if she would ever escape this life. In the midst of all the pain, Juliet found solace in one person, Mark, a fellow teacher. He shared her passion for education, and together, they found quiet moments of happiness. Away from the prying eyes of judgment, they stole kisses in the secluded school backyard, their hopes and dreams shared in whispered conversations. "Do you think anyone suspects us?" Mark asked one afternoon, leaning against the wall. "Who cares?" Juliet replied, feeling a thrill. This is the only happiness in this miserable place. But their happiness didn't last. One fateful day, Chi and his gang discovered them. "Look what I found!" Chi shouted. "Miss Juliet and Mr. Mark, getting cozy. This is too good to keep quiet." Panic surged in Juliet's chest as she begged, "No, please don't do this." But the students were relentless. They recorded videos of their intimate moments, threatening to expose them unless she handed over all her savings. "Hand it over, or we'll ruin your life." Juliet's heart raced as she weighed her options. In desperation, she gave up her savings. Her dreams, once full of promise, slipped further away as she watched the boys walk off, laughing cruelly. The next day, Juliet was summoned to the principal's office. She could feel the weight of her doom approaching. The room was dimly lit, filled with disappointment. "Miss Juliet, your behavior is unacceptable," the principal scolded. "You've put the school's reputation at risk. You're fired." Her heart sank as she packed her things. "But I can change. I can do better," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "Enough," the principal snapped, dismissing her with a wave. Juliet stepped into the sunlight, but it offered no warmth. Her dreams lay shattered, broken by the very students she had hoped to inspire. "It's time to leave this place," she whispered, tears blurring her vision as she walked home, haunted by the laughter of her former students. On a moonlit night, Juliet boarded a bus, her heart heavy with sorrow. The village faded behind her as she set off for the city, hoping to escape her pain. The bus was cramped, filled with weary travelers. As it rolled along the winding road, Juliet felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this would be the fresh start she needed. But fate had other plans. Without warning, the bus screeched to a halt. Armed robbers stormed inside, their faces hidden behind masks. Panic erupted. "Everyone down," one shouted, brandishing a gun. Juliet's heart raced as she recognized one of the robbers. It was one of her former students, a graduate from the year before. "What are you doing here?" she gasped, trembling with disbelief. "Funny seeing you here, Miss Juliet," he sneered, the gun gleaming ominously in his hand. "Looks like you're in the wrong place at the wrong time." Before she could react, he pulled the trigger. The pain exploded in her chest. She crumbled to the floor, darkness closing in, taking with it her dreams and ambitions. Juliet's family and the village mourned her untimely death. She had such big dreams, her mother sobbed, clutching Juliet's cherished red heels, now forever separated from her. Why was the world so cruel? At the school, the mood shifted. The students who had mocked her now felt guilt and fear. They whispered about how they had stolen her happiness. "It's all our fault she's gone," one boy muttered in regret. "We need to do something." But as whispers of her memorial spread, a dark current surged through the school. Rumors spread that Juliet had wanted to be buried with her red heels. "That's ridiculous," she laughed nervously. "Who would want to be buried with those ugly shoes?" One night, Chi and his friends crept into Juliet's mother's house. They stole one of her red heels, leaving the other behind. "Imagine her face when she finds out," Chi sneered. But as they fled, a chilling sound pierced the air. "Did you hear that?" one boy whispered, glancing back. "It's nothing." "Just go," Chi urged. But a heavy silence settled over them. The day of Juliet's funeral arrived, heavy with sorrow. The village gathered to pay their respects, but a tension hung in the air. "Where's the other shoe?" Juliet's mother cried, frantic. "I promised she would be buried with them." "We couldn't find it," Chi lied, avoiding eye contact. Unease spread through the crowd as they felt Juliet's absence. The weight of her unfulfilled dreams lingered in the air. With no choice, they buried her, one shoe missing. In the afterlife, Juliet was surrounded by blinding light, but her heart was heavy. The joy of freedom was overshadowed by the absence of her beloved shoe. "Please," she pleaded with the guardians of the realm. "Let me return to find my other shoe." But the guardians shook their heads. "Your soul cannot rest. You have unfinished business. You must seek vengeance." Anger surged within Juliet's spirit. She morphed into Lady Koi Koi, an entity fueled by pain, betrayal, and revenge. "I will return, and they will pay for what they've done," she vowed. Back in the village, everything changed. A chilling breeze swept through the school. Whispers of Lady Koi Koi began to circulate. At first, the students thought it was just a rumor. But soon, it became clear that something sinister was at play. Late at night, students heard the unmistakable sound of heels clicking down the hostel's dark halls. "Did you hear that?" one girl gasped, clutching her pillow in fear. "It's probably just the wind," someone dismissed. But with each passing night, the sound grew louder. Juliet's spirit, now Lady Koi Koi, roamed the school, her presence haunting the very place where she had once hoped to inspire. "Remember me," she whispered into the night, her voice soft yet filled with malice. "I was once your teacher. Now, I am your nightmare." As fear gripped the school, the students found themselves unable to sleep. Nightmares plagued their minds, visions of Juliet's vengeful spirit tormenting them. Some woke up in a cold sweat, gasping for breath. "Maybe we should apologize," one boy suggested, his face pale with terror. "Are you insane?" Chi snapped, his frustration boiling over. Whispers of Lady Koi Koi spread like wildfire, enveloping the school in fear. "Maybe we can hold a memorial for her," one boy suggested, desperation in his voice. But it was already too late. The nightmare had begun. The boys stood together, their hearts heavy with guilt, wondering if this would be enough to calm Lady Ku's wrath. Would their apology at the memorial finally make her leave them alone? As the day of the memorial approached, a storm of emotions brewed in their chests, hope mingled with dread. Could it undo the damage they had done? Could it silence the haunting memories of Juliet's spirit? And so, there they were, gathered in the school courtyard, flowers in hand, their collective guilt pressing down like a physical weight. The air was thick with tension. "Today, we honor Juliet," Chi began, his voice faltering, the words heavy with remorse. "We've wronged her, and we ask for forgiveness. We were cruel, and for that, we are truly sorry." The crowd fell into an eerie silence, every eye on Chi. The words he spoke seemed to hang in the air, thick and suffocating. As they shared memories of Juliet's unwavering dedication and burning passion, a cold shiver crawled down their spines. A lingering thought haunted them, was she watching? Waiting for the perfect moment to claim her vengeance? Suddenly, the wind picked up, a harsh gust cutting through the courtyard. The candles they had lit in Juliet's memory flickered and snuffed out in an instant. And then, a chilling laugh, low, unsettling, and echoing in the distance. A cold shiver shot through the boys, their hearts in their throats. "Did you really think I would let you forget me?" The voice was unmistakable. Lady Ku! Her presence seeped into the crowd, dark and menacing. Panic set in as the students scattered, fear overriding every shred of logic. "We are sorry," one girl screamed, her voice trembling, desperate. "Do you remember how you laughed at my dreams?" Lady Ku's ghostly figure materialized in front of Chi, her eyes glowing with a malice that sent chills down his spine. "You mocked me when I was alive, and now you want to honor my memory?" Chi could feel her pain, her fury, raw, unfiltered. She was no longer just a victim, she had become the embodiment of their cruelty. Her eyes flashed with burning rage. "It's too late to apologize." Chi stepped back, his heart pounding in his chest, as he faced the specter of the woman they had so brutally wronged. "Please, we didn't mean to hurt you." Lady Ku's laugh was bitter and cold. "You weren't just foolish. You were cruel," she spat, her voice a hiss. "And now, you will pay." And so it began. One by one, the boys who had mocked her were targeted by Lady Ku's wrath. Her vengeance was swift and terrifying, each of them disappearing into the night, their screams echoing in the dark, their fates sealed by the very woman they had once tormented. The once bustling school had transformed into a ghost town. Students stayed home, too terrified to attend classes. Whispers spread like wildfire, books flying off shelves, strange sightings in the halls, and the unmistakable sound of clicking heels echoing through the darkness. But for Chi and his friends, the terror wasn't over. They were haunted by visions of Juliet's ghost, relentless and inescapable. Meeting in secret, they hatched a desperate plan. "We have to confront her," Chi insisted, a flicker of determination sparking in his eyes. "If we find the shoe, maybe we can put her spirit to rest." "Are you out of your mind?" one boy hissed, his face pale with fear. "You want to go back to the graveyard?" But they knew there was no other way. To end the nightmare, they had to face Lady Ku. Together, they ventured into the forest, where Chi had hidden the shoe, certain it was the key to appeasing her spirit. A shiver ran down Chi's spine. Do you think she's watching us? One boy whispered, his voice tight with fear. Shut up, Chi snapped, his nerves frayed. Just focus on finding the shoe. The fog thickened around them, blinding their path, and then, the sound of clicking heels. Chi's heart stopped. He froze. There was no mistaking it. Run, he shouted, but the eerie clicking was growing louder, closer. Panic flooded the group. They scattered in all directions, but Chi found himself trapped, unable to escape. The sound of the heels, the slow, rhythmic click-click-click, drove him mad. Please, he cried, falling to his knees, his voice desperate. I'll do anything. Please, Juliet, I'm sorry. But Lady Ku had no mercy. Blood spilled, staining the ground as Chi was consumed by the wrath he had unknowingly awakened. The next morning, a heavy silence settled over the hostel. The boys waited anxiously for Chi to return, but he never did. 3 days passed before they could no longer deny it. Chi was gone. Grief settled in their hearts, but so did terror. If Chi was dead, who was next? And worse still, Chi had been the only one who knew the exact spot where the shoe had been hidden. Without him, how could they return it to Lady Ku? Going back to that cursed forest seemed like a suicide mission. The fear of facing Lady Ku again was too much to bear. But as night fell, Lady Ku's ghostly figure glided through the streets. Her red heels clicked with each step, the sound growing louder as she approached Mark's house. The moon cast long shadows, but the only thing Mark could hear was the steady rhythm of those heels. With a soft knock on the door, she waited. Mark's heart raced, an icy chill creeping down his spine. He opened the door, his breath catching in his throat. There she stood, Juliet. But not as he remembered her. Her once beautiful face was twisted with sorrow, her eyes glowing with an eerie, unnatural light. Juliet, he whispered, his voice trembling with fear and disbelief. It's me, Mark, she replied, her voice carrying a soft sadness, but it was laced with something darker. I didn't come to hurt you. Mark's heart skipped a beat, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. What do you want? He asked, his voice breaking. You loved me when I was alive, Juliet said, her expression softening for a brief moment. You were the only one who cared about me. I can't hurt you, she continued, her voice now hollow and resigned. But I need something from you. Mark's breath caught in his throat. Anything. What do you need? Tell me where they are, the others. The ones who mock me. I know they're hiding. Her eyes darkened, the glow in them growing more intense. You must tell me, Mark. I need to find them. Mark's legs buckled beneath him, his body shaking with fear. Please, Juliet, don't do this. I still care about you. She stepped closer, her heels clicking louder as she neared. It's too late for that. My revenge is all that's left. Tell me where they are, and I'll spare you. Tears filled Mark's eyes. There's an old abandoned church. They're hiding in the cellar. Juliet's smile twisted, a sad, sinister thing. Thank you, Mark. You've always been kind to me. I won't forget this. And with that, she turned and disappeared into the night, her red heels echoing in the darkness. Back in the girls' hostel, Amina lay wide awake, tossing and turning. The fear of Lady Ku's stories haunted her, the sound of clicking heels in her mind. She couldn't hold it anymore. I have to go, she whispered, fear crawling up her spine. She nudged her friend, Goli, who groaned and opened her eyes. What's wrong? I need to pee, but I'm scared to go alone, Amina confessed, her voice trembling. Goli rolled her eyes. Fine, let's make it quick." The two girls crept down the dark hallway, hearts racing with every creak of the floorboards. Shadows seemed to move with them, every corner hiding something that could be worse than they imagined. As they reached the bathroom, Amina froze. The unmistakable click of heels echoed down the hallway. "Do you hear that?" Amina whispered, her voice shaky. Goalie's face turned pale. "It's probably just the wind," she stammered, though her wide eyes betrayed her fear. But as they turned, Lady Ku emerged from the shadows. Her red heels gleamed, her eyes glowing with malice. "What are you doing here so late?" she whispered, her voice cold and airy. Amina's breath caught in her throat. "Please, we didn't mean to, we're just going to the bathroom," she stammered. Lady Ku's lips curled into a sinister smile. "You should have stayed in bed." Before they could react, she reached out, grabbing Amina's wrist with an icy grip. Amina screamed, her voice piercing the air, but Lady Ku's grip was unyielding, like iron. "Let me go," she cried, tears streaming down her face, her body trembling as she fought against the force that dragged her deeper into the hallway. Desperation surged within her, but it was no use. "Please, we didn't do anything," Amina pleaded, her voice breaking, the terror in her chest growing with every step. Lady Ku's eyes locked onto her, cold and merciless. "It's not about what you've done," she whispered, her voice dripping with malice. "It's about what you will become." She let out a cruel laugh, the sound echoing in the corridor as she dragged them further into the darkness. Their screams rang out, fading into the hollow, oppressive silence that followed. Amina's sobs were the last sounds heard before they were consumed by the night. Winfred had always dismissed the tales of Lady Ku as nothing more than rumors. As a devout Christian, he believed that faith and prayer could shield him from anything, even the darkness that lurked in the stories told by the others. But when his friend David fell ill one fateful night, everything changed. "I need to take you to the sick bay," Winfred said, his voice steady, though his heart raced as he helped David out of bed. As they moved down the dim hallway, a chill swept over them, the temperature plummeting, sending shivers through their bones. Then came the unmistakable sound, the click of heels echoing through the silent corridor. "Did you hear that?" David's voice was shaky, his face pale with fear. Winfred's heart skipped a beat, but he tried to keep his composure. "It's just a story." "There's nothing to be afraid of," he said, though doubt crept into his voice. But before they could take another step, Lady Ku appeared, her presence commanding and terrifying. Her eyes glowed with a malice that sent icy tendrils of fear down their spines. "Going somewhere?" she asked, her voice like a hiss, sending a chill through their bodies. David's knees buckled, and he collapsed, paralyzed by fear. "Please, no!" he cried. But Winfred, trembling yet determined, clasped his hands together and began to pray. "In the name of Jesus, I rebuke you," he declared, his voice growing louder with each word, though his hands shook with the weight of his fear. Lady Ku's laugh was cold and mocking. "Do you really think that will work?" she sneered. But Winfred's faith did not falter. He continued, louder, stronger, each word a declaration of his belief. "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not fear. You have no power over us." To his amazement, Lady Ku began to fade, her form dissolving into darkness. With a final, furious scream, she vanished. Winfred gasped for air, his heart pounding in his chest. "We need to tell the others," he said, turning to David, who was pale and shaking beside him. "Prayer is the only way to stop her." Back in the hostel, Winfred gathered his friends. "You all need to pray. That's the only way to stop her. Lady Ku is real, and she's hunting us down." Some students laughed, dismissing his warning as nothing but superstition. "You really think prayer will stop a ghost?" they scoffed. But others, their faces drawn with fear, joined him, their voices trembling as they whispered their prayers. The room was thick with tension, divided between those who believed and those who mocked. Winfred stood at the center, his body shaking, but his resolve unshaken. "I tried to warn them," he murmured, guilt and frustration in his voice. Lady Ku is not just a story. She is real, and she is very angry. Later that day, the group huddled together in the school chapel, some too frightened to go anywhere alone. The chapel, small and humble, now felt like their only sanctuary. Winfred led them in solemn prayer, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "Lord, please protect us from the evil that rises against us. Give us strength and cast away the darkness that seeks to consume us." As their voices rose in prayer, the tension was palpable. But not everyone shared their faith. From the back of the chapel, a voice sneered. "I don't think this is going to work," said OS, his arms crossed. "It's just a ghost story. We're wasting our time." Winfred's gaze never wavered. "Prayer is all we have," he said firmly. "If you don't believe, you're welcome to leave. But for those of us who seek protection, this is the way." OS scoffed and turned to leave, a few others following him, their eyes rolling in disbelief as they stepped out into the night. But the laughter they shared didn't last. As they walked down the darkened path, a deep sense of dread began to settle over them. The air grew colder, the wind picking up, rustling the leaves in the trees. A girl whispered, her voice trembling, "Maybe we should go back. This place is giving me the creeps." OS shook his head, trying to mask his own fear. "There's no such thing as ghosts. You're all just scared of a silly story." But as he spoke, the sound of clicking heels echoed behind them, click, 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 growing louder, closer. They froze in their tracks, their hearts pounding in their chests. And then, there she was. Lady Ku, her red heels gleaming under the pale moonlight, her eyes glowing with fury. "Do you think you can laugh at me and get away with it?" she hissed, her voice laced with venom. OS's bravado vanished in an instant. "Run!" he shouted, but his legs felt like they were anchored to the ground. Lady Ku glided toward them, her eyes burning with rage, her hands reaching out like claws. "You think you can escape me?" she snarled. The students scattered in all directions, but it was too late. One by one, Lady Ku caught them, her eerie laughter ringing out as they vanished into the night. Their cries for help went unanswered, swallowed by the darkness. Back in the chapel, Winfred and the others continued their prayers, unaware of the terror unfolding just outside. But then, the door burst open, and a boy stumbled in, gasping for breath. "She's here! Lady Ku is here!" he cried, his face pale with terror. Panic erupted among the students, but Winfred remained firm. "Keep praying," he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Do not stop, no matter what happens." The students huddled together, their voices trembling, but their prayers grew louder, more urgent, their desperation palpable. Outside, the sound of Lady Ku's heels grew louder, each click reverberating through the walls, her voice echoing, "Do you think your prayers can stop me?" But Winfred remained unshaken. "In the name of Jesus, you have no power over us," he declared, his voice filled with unwavering conviction. And then, the clicking stopped. The air grew still, heavy with silence. The students held their breath, eyes wide with fear, waiting for what would come next. For a moment, nothing happened. And then, as if carried by the wind, Lady Ku's presence faded, leaving only the faintest trace of perfume in the air. Winfred exhaled, his heart still racing. They were safe, for now. The students looked at him, awe in their eyes. "How did you do that?" one of them whispered. "It wasn't me," Winfred said quietly, shaking his head. It was faith. Faith is the only thing that can protect us from her. In the days that followed, the fear lingered. The students who had ignored Winfred's warning were never seen again, their absence a grim reminder of the dangers that lurked in the shadows. Those who remained, bound by their shared faith and the terror they had survived, continued to pray, never letting their guard down. They knew Lady Ku could return at any moment, and when she did, they would be ready. Though life at the school slowly returned to normal, the legend of Lady Ku endured, passed down from one generation to the next. Her story became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the power of faith and the consequences of cruelty. Winfred, once just a student, became a quiet leader, his unwavering faith inspiring others to believe in something greater than themselves. But even he knew, this fight was far from over. Lady Ku would return one day, and when she did, they would be ready.